Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 31st episode of Tex Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to have you here. It's Saturday, May 5th, 2018. I guess Cinco de Mayo. Looks like the temperature is going to be pretty nice outside, so that's always a good sign. It'll make outdoor gardening a little less burdensome. It'll be a lot less onerous on activities that require the great outdoors. And it's just nice to have good weather. One moment, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, pardon that delay. Forgot to turn the lights on up there. Sometimes, we just hit record on the camera and then just hit the ground running, basically. Occasionally, I'll forget stuff here and there, but, like sometimes forgetting to delete the SD card from the previous show, or forgetting to open the shades, the lights and everything too. So we just try to do the best we can given our staff here, ladies and gentlemen. So hopefully we can run a good show and a tight ship. So we got great weather for this Saturday. Good day to go outside, maybe bike around, canoe, maybe if you're an aspiring trapeze artist, maybe you can tie some rope between some trees and practice that. If you wanted to stick a wind turbine in a tree, go climb up it and stick it on the top. If you want to experiment with some static power free energy stuff, go ahead and run your coaxial cable outside and create an electrolyte out of it. The possibilities are endless when you get nice weather like this, ladies and gentlemen. So it's a good reason to fully indulge in it, enjoy it, and then just use it to make yourself greater again. Now this past week I met with a few sponsors. Haven't had any follow-up from them, so usually when you do meet with sponsors, if they follow up with you the next day, then it's a pretty good sign. But if they don't, after at least within 24 hours, then they're usually not interested. In this day and age, society moves at a pretty fast rate of speed. Now, with internet, telecommunications, automobiles, airplanes, people can pretty much do anything they want in a single day. If you really wanted to, you could fly over to Japan and meet some people, and you'd probably have to fly back home the next day, but you could be there within 24 hours. You could pretty much be anywhere in the world, and hell, maybe you could even get to the moon within 24 hours or whatever the case, or whatever Studio A or whatever the case may be. So and then if you ever work in a manufacturing or industrial environment or engineering, they generally want the project done yesterday. So yeah, unless it's a defense contractor, then it's 3 years from now, and you have about 3 weeks worth of work. So yeah, most industries are a little bit. They deviate slightly, but for the most part, people want everything yesterday, and then when you do give it to them, then they don't really actually need it for 3 months, but they just wanted to, light a fire under your behind. There's not necessarily anything bad with that. It's good to get motivated to put yourself to the test, to be the best of the best, and then just to have clear goals outlined. Because if like for example, if you're working for some company that gets a bunch of dirty free money and they just need to spend money and they don't really know what to spend it on, so they just hire a deluge of employees to just sit around all day and not really do anything. Yeah, you get paid a lot of money doing that, and it sounds good on paper to be lazy, but in all reality, here's the thing. I've had jobs before where you're on assembly line, you're putting sand castings on, and it's very, very difficult. Yeah, it's challenging and all that, but you're essentially doing something that a robot could do, and it's physically laborious. You're very busy. So that's the end of the spectrum where you're basically, it's just extremely monotonous, repetitious, and it's almost damaging to your body too, because you got to lean over an assembly line and all this other stuff. So that's the end of the spectrum where you're working too hard. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where you got 3 weeks worth of work to do in 6 months. So then you have to find something to do in those 6 months, and since everybody else in the company is also in the same situation, you can't really help anybody because it's like trying to find gold mine in your backyard. It's just not You can look and look and look and look, but it's just not going to happen. So it is good to, like everything, like work, family, friends, health, hobby, to find that balance, and same work especially. I mean, if you're in a job where you're working so hard every day and it's extremely monotonous and you're stressing the same muscles every single day, and next thing you know you got permanent chronic back and neck pain, then you definitely have a problem. And if you're in a job where you're just sitting around all day not doing anything, and then you start to have chronic headaches because your brain is not ever working, that's also a very bad thing. So it's good to find a nice combination, a middle path of just a job that's going to make you happy, healthy, and long term. Now, yeah, you can, if you start your own business and stuff like that, that definitely would help too. I mean, if you do carpentry work or whatever, and rather than working for somebody else, you just do your own work, that's definitely probably the way to go for most people. Like for me, I have this very difficult task of not being able to ask people for money. So if I were to run a business, it would fail cataclysmically just based on that. Now, yeah, sure, you can maybe get people around you and stuff, but that's the other thing too. I don't really agree in asking others to, serve me or serve. Well, I mean, yeah, serving your country is obviously a good thing, or serving a power greater than yourself. But to serve another human being just seems really weird, and to ask another human being to serve me would just feel extremely weird. Almost like you're trying to play God. It's sort of in that realm. So it's just something that I really just can't do. And yeah, I suppose you can work as a partnership with other people too, but then you got the whole give an inch, take a foot, and people don't always see eye to eye, and it's just when things get hard, then people get mean and all this other weird stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge to find your footing, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, as long as you're challenging yourself every single day, maybe you can take a Sunday off or whatever the case may be, and if you're well intentioned, then yeah, good things will probably come your way. A while back when I was working and getting paid a whole lot of money, figured I'd start looking into stock market and investments and everything. And yeah, I mean, it does make financial sense to get involved with that kind of stuff. But I mean, to put an inordinate amount of time into it just seemed completely wasteful when I could be doing something more productive, like outdoor gardening, for example, or maybe volunteering at some hospital or whatever the case may be, or at a library. So, yeah, I mean, financially, I guess it would make sense to look into and spend a bunch of time on investments and everything. But in all reality, it's just exchanging money, so you're not really producing anything. It's just you're taking what's already out there and trying to exploit those that produced it, in my opinion. So it just felt weird spending any amount of time on it. Now, does that mean you just dump your money in a bank and get the 0.01% interest rate? Maybe not. But I found that just, if you got cool things, see, like if you're running your own business, then you figure, well, if you get some, well, like for example, if you're running a talk show, you can say, well, I got $30,000, so I'll just spend $20,000 on a camera and $10,000 on a microphone and see where it takes me. And yeah, you can say, well, the resale value on that stuff is pretty terrible. But you're investing in yourself. You're believing in yourself that what you're doing is going to, yeah, it may not work out, but if you always consistently believe in yourself, eventually someday something will work out. Now, if you're just putting out money into Target or Graco as a corporation to invest in them, you're basically just not really throwing money away because, yeah, it might go up or down in value, but you're sort of relying on other people's success to bring yourself to a higher state. Now, yeah, if you're working 60, 70 hours a week and you have no time to spend money and you got to put your money somewhere, then what do you do? Do you invest in bonds or mutual funds or index funds or any of this goofy stuff? And yeah, I mean, that's sort of the dilemma when you're working for other companies or corporations or other people, that you're going to put a lot of time into working for them, and then they're going to compensate you for money. Then you'll you'll spend for your needs, and then what do you spend the rest of your money on? Because I mean, yeah, if you think of an investment as getting money and then increasing it over time, then you're not going to want to get anything like a car or a truck or SUV or electronic equipment or anything like that. You know, you might want to maybe want to buy some hunting land, and then every once in a while you can go hunt and then get wild game, and then you got your meat for the year. So that's sort of investing in yourself too, and not really requiring a great deal of time, because unless you got to go up and maintain the land and all this other goofy stuff. But it's just a good way to spend your money. And now, yeah, you're probably going to have to pay taxes on the land, and you know, every once in a while you might have some riffraff that get involved with it too. But for the most part, it's just a kind of a nice thing to do, and a good way to spend money. And you are really sort of kind of investing in yourself too. But if you were to take that $30,000 and then just spend it all on, put it all in a target stock, and then yeah, it can go up or down, and you get dividends and all that junk. I mean, yeah, you might make money, you might lose money, but ultimately you're just investing in other people, more or less. So that was always the dilemma that I came up with, because when I first looked into stock markets and everything, you know, it looked like it was all fun and games, and that everyone was laughing and smiling. And I figured, hey, if the Federal Reserve is just putting 85 million or $1 billion in every day, then everyone must be making money. Now, when you consider the source of your wealth, then I mean, you feel a little bit dirty when you take those factors into consideration too. And but backing up here a little bit. So there's all kinds of funny business out there, options, or you know, short selling, and you know, stop gap trading, and all this other weird, or hedge fund managing, and all this other funny stuff. And I mean, yeah, it seems like it's just all fun and games, but when you really get down to it, it's just the most non-productive thing that a human could actually do, just to figure out how to exchange money in weird chicanery or bamboozling kind of ways. And then the other thing too, I mean, there's, with high frequency trading, there's a lot of companies that skim off the top. And if you want to invest in the stock market, when you get online brokers, what that means is that to actually buy a stock directly, you need to have a certain net worth, and the brokers have that net worth, so that's why you can buy through them, and then they, you know, get their commission or whatever. So that's another thing to consider too. Now, if your other option is just to have it in a bank, yeah, I mean, if you got a few thousand in a bank to pay for your bills for the next year or two, then that's probably a good thing too. Then, you know, you won't stress out over money. Well, sometimes stressing out over money is not necessarily a bad thing, because it'll motivate you and light a fire underneath you to be a productive member of society. Now, yeah, maybe you got to pick up a job at McDonald's to cover some bills, or pick up a job delivering pizzas at the age of 30 to cover some bills. But I mean, for the most part, if you're being productive and you have a positive outlook and you're not doing illegal things, then yeah, it'll definitely work out in the long run, and you'll feel good about it. Yeah, I mean, if you're 30 years old, you don't really want to tell anybody that you work at McDonald's, but you know, any strangers. But I mean, most people that are good, upstanding, morally sound people, they understand that every person has unique circumstances, and that, you know, maybe you just weren't a healthy person, or you know, maybe you even had some major accident or some neurological troubles that brought you to whatever circumstance you are. So if you're being a productive member of society, that's really the most important thing. I mean, if you're going down to Colombia and riding around in those submarines and sending drugs up back and forth, yeah, you're going to make way more money, and you know, you might only have to do it for a year and then you're set for life. But I mean, is that really the way you want to go? See, the biggest fear that somebody can have is fear of the Almighty. I mean, everybody seems to inherently know whether what they're doing is good or not, or right from wrong. But it's just, you know, they figure that the payoff is worth it. I mean, if you're standing on street corners in Minneapolis selling cocaine and you're making $100,000 a year, you think, well, you know, it's great money. I know it's probably not the right thing to do, but the money makes it worth it. You know, it makes it worth the risk. But what if your greatest fear is of the Almighty? That's not even a consideration. I mean, somebody could offer you millions of dollars to sling cocaine on a street corner, but it's still, hey, you know what? You know, this life is only temporary. It sounds all well and great, but I mean, anything I can get out of having the additional purchasing power is probably not worth the. And then you got the earthly risks too. You might get shot, or stuck in somebody's trunk and tortured, or you might get arrested, or you might experiment with some of the cocaine and have a really bad reaction, or just a slow death is probably the worst thing, which is usually what happens with the synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides in most of our foods. Which probably should be the primary focus of the show. But I mean, to just try to invest in your, I'm not trying to be a motivational speaker here. I mean, if you knew what I did in a typical day, I don't think anybody would lust for my existence. But I'm just trying to present a viewpoint here that you can interpret and maybe think, yeah, that might be a good. 1 out of the 10 things that's stated on text messages might make somewhat sense, and something that you maybe thought of before, and now when you hear it from somebody else, then it's sort of a catalyst for doing it. Because when I listen to a couple talk shows, usually just InfoWars and K-Fan, but they'll say stuff on there that, and somewhere in the back of my mind, or in an unconscious memory bank in my brain, I just was thinking of it, and when they say it on there, and then it sort of manifests itself, and then it moves up into my conscious mind, and maybe it doesn't really fully change you as a person, but it definitely allows you to see things in a different way, in a different perspective. So I mean, if you come into a big pile of money, then it's always, I mean, running a business or whatever just seems, it's not for everybody. I mean, most people just want to be good, hardworking, morally upstanding people. So they have no problem working for a corporation or for somebody else, and that's just how it is. It doesn't mean you have to run and start your own business, because like I said earlier, one of my biggest, it's very difficult for me to ask money from people, and it's very difficult for me to ask people to serve me. So right off the bat there, I would probably be one of the worst business owners that you could ever imagine, because those are two of the fundamental things that you need to succeed in the business world. So I just try to have some decent aptitude or mechanical skills, and then just try to parlay that and work for other companies or corporations, and then make enough to survive, and then fully indulge in hobbies like running a talk show, or outdoor, indoor gardening, biking, swimming, walking, crawling, rolling, digging, weightlifting. So that's why it's important to keep everything in balance, because I mean, you can, to be ultra successful at anything, it probably does require some, well, first of all, it requires very unique talents given to you by the Almighty, but it also requires an ultra obsession with that as well. And if you're very, very talented in something, and it's very, very clear and lucid to you that you are, it's a little easier to be obsessed over something. I mean, if you're, Michael Jordan, for example, he probably had a pretty good idea that he was in the top 1% as far as basketball players go. So he obsessed over it and just made himself great again, and made his team great again. Now, you can say, well, Michael Olowokandi, for example, he probably had more skills than Michael Jordan, but he just didn't care. He just wanted to lumber through life and get a paycheck. And if you can last in your career, if you got enough natural talent, you can just last in your career just by having a pulse and a heartbeat. But I mean you're very fortunate and blessed, obviously, and maybe if you want to parlay your energy into other endeavors, then who's to say it's right from wrong, or good from bad? So I mean, everybody's a little bit. Some people inspire you, and others don't. I mean, maybe Michael Olowokandi inspired people to follow their natural talents and then just to do a half-assed job at it. And maybe a lot of people like that. And maybe Michael Jordan inspires a lot of people too, because they think, well, I'll find my talent, then just obsess over it and put it, give it pedal to the metal, balls to the wall. who's to say which one is right or which one is wrong? But I can definitely tell you the Michael Jordan philosophy probably builds a stronger society. And just, I mean, if there's some people out there doing road construction and they're really into it and enamored with it and trying to do the best job they can every single day, you're going to have more efficient roadways. You're going to have roadways that don't break down as much. You're probably going to have less traffic jams. You're going to have less detouring because they'll probably get the job done faster and more efficiently, and they won't have to block roads off more often. So, yeah, I mean, if everybody, see, we don't need to be ultra competitive with everybody. It's just find your skill, do the best you can at it, and then it'll just work out for everybody else. Now, yeah, once you get these controlling factors in play that just try to repress everybody and crap on everyone and take advantage of everybody's skills, then that's where most societies start to break down. And but that's what makes America great again, because most people that do have particularly unique skills and talents have an avenue to utilize that and to make a living off of it. I mean, how many other countries could you go to and you could play basketball and get paid millions of dollars? Now, yeah, not very many people can get paid millions of dollars to play basketball, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's pretty fun to watch. Like when the Timberwolves are actually doing pretty good, then yeah, it's fun to watch. But when they have it on antenna TV, not this, FSN or whatever. But I mean, yeah, Europe might have some basketball leagues. Maybe Russia has it, but I mean, I suppose China probably does too. So yeah, I mean, there is a lot of other countries where people, soccer players, they get paid an enormous amount of money in Europe or whatever. So yeah, I suppose there are a lot of other countries where you can use your unique skills and talents and parlay that into making a profit too. But once you start getting all these people, the leeches that try to suck people, like in sports, for example, you got the agents, the owners, and they probably have hundreds of people working underneath them that they got to pay. So, I mean, more or less, they're just leeching off of the success and the talents of the people who actually truly deserve it. Oh, yeah, you hear, so-and-so is getting paid millions of dollars to play basketball. But first, you got to factor all the taxes that are being taken out, the agent cut, and then the owner is probably engaged in some chicanery to skim some more off the top. And then, yeah, they got merchandising deals and all that too, which is probably a good deal for some of the players. But I mean, there's a lot of leeching that goes on in that too. And now, yeah, you can say everybody involved in the process has a critical function or purpose, and that's why they get their cut. But I mean, yeah, it just seems weird to. I mean, yeah. Maybe it's not a full exploitation of somebody else's talent, but I mean, yeah, I get some people maybe are better agents or owners or merchandise salespeople than others can be. But I mean, it just seems like one of those things that isn't really a talent. It's not really producing anything. It's just there as a middleman to, take away from who is actually producing. So you look at the on-court product, there's people playing basketball. Yeah, they got jerseys on. Somebody's got to make the jersey. Somebody's got to make the basketball. Somebody's got to make the court and all that too. And yeah, I guess somebody has to organize it as well. So there's a lot of moving parts in society, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're well-intentioned, then you shouldn't have anything to worry about. With that being said, we're going to have to go to a break pretty quick here. I met with the host of Good Times, Balls Deep. Sounds like he's pretty excited about getting multi-panel discussion forums together and just filming off of that. He might film some pilot projects for Good Times, Balls Deep just to see the direction he wants to go, or just to, practice with some video editing equipment or speaker audio editing equipment, all that other goofy stuff. As far as technical aspects, he's kind of like me, where he doesn't really care about technical stuff. I don't really know a damn thing about it, but he probably has more knowledge of it, and he also knows good, intelligent people that know a lot about it. Not the guy from the Institute of Higher Learning, but just other people in general that can likely assist in any and all endeavors. So, yeah, it should be a good time, and hopefully it'll be balls deep as well. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be back in 4 minutes. You're listening to Tex Messages. I'm the Parasite Rick Tex. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to episode 31 of Tex Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to have you here once again. Now, the first segment, we can probably talk about leaching a little bit more, because there might be a bit of confusion as to what exactly leaching is. Now, if most of your income is derived from seizing money from other people or seizing it through the barrel of a gun, you're probably a leech. Now, Now, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily kicking down people's doors and putting a gun to their head and taking money out of their safe. See, like, when I worked at a defense contractor for a couple of years, most of our money is from taxation, which is people are forced to pay it or they're arrested, basically. So you can absolutely say that's dirty money, and I always felt that it was dirty money. But for me, now does that make me a bad person? Maybe to an extent, yeah. I mean, when you look at the company in general, though, they had a lot of people that seem to be good people, morally upstanding and all that stuff. So it seemed like, yeah, maybe it isn't such a bad thing. But I mean, just the first couple of days I worked at the place, you kind of walked around, everybody has forlorn expression. I mean, there are a few people that were upbeat and in good moods. But for the most part, everyone had more of a forlorn, melancholy expression. Kind of felt like you were walking around with a bunch of zombies, more or less. The zombie parasite term, for example. So, I didn't really have many options by then because, I took a few steps to ensure that I had a skill or a talent that I could pursue, and all avenues seemed to be dead ends, and then that was the only one that was available. So I figured, well, it's either this or living in my parents' basement for the rest of my life. So the options, they didn't seem very good. So I basically had to pick the dirty money route. Now, yeah, the dirty money, it's funded the land here, these facilities, the Tex Messages studios, and maybe the vehicles I got outside, and all without no mortgage or no debt or no supporting fractional banking or nothing like that. So yeah, maybe I did make the right choice in retrospect, but it's hard to say because maybe it's just understanding the situation and then making do from there. Because it does feel like I owe a debt to society, definitely. I mean, see, one of the problems with jobs most days, ladies and gentlemen, is that pretty much all of them are just supported and funded by dirty money. Now, what I mean by that is government funding. So if you work for a high school, it's basically dirty money. If you work, a lot of companies I work for, they get contracts to work on a school or on a government building or build buses for government entities, and yeah, it's just all dirty money, which is sad. But see, we're still sort of under the assumption that it is a capitalist society, but it definitely seems to be getting away from that. And if you do want, say for example, if I had a bunch of chickens out here, I wouldn't be able to sell them off from my house. It's a local city ordinance, and not really sure why that is, but maybe safety something or another. But I mean, there's just a lot of laws, rules, and regulations out there that make it more and more difficult for the individual to just survive and thrive by themselves. So then they have to start relying on companies and corporations. And once government gets so strong and powerful that it can pretty much dictate the direction of these companies and corporations, then things just become a big spider web of dirty money contracting. It's like Federal Reserve can just make a bunch of monopoly money and give it to the Fed or the federal government. Then they can pick and choose winners and losers and then just hand them out money. And then those companies, they don't really even have to do anything. They can just subcontract to other companies that can maybe do the work, and then hell, they might even subcontract to somebody else. So it's just some giant weave of nonsense. And then, yeah, ultimately it gets down, you got all the layers of skimming off the top. So there might be 5 or 6 layers till you actually get to the productive member of society. Now, there are certain things, though, that require a great collaborative effort. I mean, building a giant locomotive train. An individual's not going to be able to do that in their backyard. But you got to think, in the 1800s, people were building trains, train tracks and everything. Yeah, there probably was slave labor and all that stuff involved too. But it's just tough to imagine a collaborative effort without extensive government funding or government backing or too big to fail and all this other weird goofy stuff. So as far as, yeah, it's probably more capitalist society than communism or socialism or any of that, those other goofy terms, but it, for the individual to succeed, it's number one, you have to accept that you're not going to be wealthy from a monetary or a materialistic standpoint. I mean, if you're making enough to feed yourself, feed your family, have shelter, not have any debt, be able to have decent education, whether you choose to homeschool or indoctrination camp, you're already paying for the indoctrination camp, so I think for most people it's just a good idea to do that. But the problem with some of them, especially more densely populated areas, is that they just have such a plethora of children, and then when you send your kids off to them, then your kids sort of pick up and adopt the habits of all the other children, which is mostly, the education, indoctrination sort of drives that a little bit too, but it's also what's portrayed and illustrated in media as what's cool and what's not cool, or what's fool or what's buffoon and all that. So, you kind of lose a little bit of handle on, raising your kids and wanting them to be what you think is a good idea based on your experiences in life. And so, say for example, if you got a 5-year-old kid, I can tell you from first-hand experience, when you're 3, 4, 5 years old, it's not a good idea to have a diet that's basically 100% based on sugars and candies, because you're going to have not only major problems in the short term, but pretty much major problems long term and for the rest of your life. So that's why it's important for parents to constantly be vigilant and aware and learn and adapt to how society's changing, because now with cell phones and people just constantly on cell phones and all the radiation, especially the 5G radiation, it's probably a bad idea to expose your kids to cell phones and everything too, or to get them too involved with technical things like that. So there's also that to consider. To just, there's still sugar and candy and all that stuff too that needs to get eradicated. We'll come after them someday, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe the cell phones too. For now, it's just a good idea to. When AM and FM radio first came out too, people were probably worried about the deleterious effects of them as well, and rightfully so. You probably don't want to stick your head right next to an antenna. I get there, only AM and FM waves aren't really that powerful, or aren't as bad as cell phones, because they're not transmitting thousands of gigabytes of information every second, or whatever the new speed rates are these days. So keeping up with society, and sometimes, as much as things change, they stay the same. So it's just, if you wake up every morning with the intention of doing good and being a morally upstanding person, then you can absolutely succeed in, as far as the eyes of the Almighty. But you almost have to be a semi-healthy person to be able to do that. If you're drinking alcohol all day or smoking cigarettes all day, and then you just turn into a miserable person, it's very difficult to be a morally upstanding, hard-working guy then, just based on that. So that's why your health is the absolute foundation of what you can be, and of to be a successful or a good morally upstanding person and all that stuff too. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have to we're gonna have to go to a break pretty quick here. But before we do, Good Times Balls Deep is gonna be coming on the air pretty soon. Now, I don't know if we'll have it on this YouTube channel or different channel or whatever the case is, but we'll see. It's probably good to split up channels. Then if I get banned or whatever, then, or if my channel gets removed, then we got the other channel as backup, or if that channel gets removed, so we got this one. So it's always good to have modular or segregated avenues of entertainment. So if one goes down, the other can rise like the phoenix. Now, you don't want to put your eggs in one basket and all that goofy stuff too. So there's also that to consider. I mean, once Good Times Balls Deep hits the airwave, I'll direct you to the wherever it'll be, and then hopefully you can watch it and enjoy it and help make St. Cloud great again. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in about 4 minutes here. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We'll see you in a little bit. Welcome back to Tex Messages, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to have you here Saturday morning, May 5th, 2018. Yeah, it looks like the Jehovah Witnesses are in the neighborhood here, so if I have to abruptly end the show early, it's because they're at the door approaching the facilities, so then I'll have to engage in some type of discussion with them, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I'm trying to keep an eye out for it and everything too, because yeah, I mean sometimes people are willing to spend their time coming to your house and all that goofy stuff, then may as well talk to them. But I mean, if you live in more densely populated areas, you get all these solicitors and people that try to sell you stuff, and it just gets annoying after a while. I mean, out here the houses are pretty spread apart, so basically all you're going to get is Jehovah's Witnesses, and yeah, we'll get mailers with coupons and discounts and all that other goofy stuff, but for the most part, even Halloween, there's not a lot of trick-or-treaters out here. Which is kind of good and bad in a way too, but it's kind of bad because I always wanted to have the costume of having the flashing Halloween pumpkin and then just laying face down on the floor, and then when trick-or-treaters come, just let them grab candy out of a bowl or something. That was sort of always a gig that I wanted to do, but when nobody comes out here for trick-or-treating, it makes it rather difficult to engage in those tactics. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, why don't we just go ahead and talk about money and investing and that kind of garbage. So, back in the good old days, E-Trade first became popular and you could buy stocks on that. It cost about $15 to make a trade. And yeah, I thought it was all cool and fun and games and everything because you'd watch the stock channel and they'd have all the stock tickers going on the bottom of the screen, and you figured, oh yeah, they can go up and down, but that must mean that you can make money or you can lose money based on your optimism or pessimism. But what I found over the years is that sometimes you make money, sometimes you lose money. So it almost seemed that you're just throwing away your time. Now, say for example, even if you buy some land up north or wherever and you want to just use it for hunting or just to stare at it, or say you own it or whatever, yeah, it can definitely go down in value, but yeah, I mean, it goes up too, and then you still got to pay property taxes, and if there's any maintenance that needs to be done, you got to go up there. So there are a few factors to consider, and like for example, if you got $40,000 and you think that you're gonna take all winter off, so you need $10,000 to survive the winter. So yeah, I suppose then it's a good idea to have $10,000 in a bank that's ready to rock, or just to have $10,000 of cash or silver coins in your basement that are there and available and ready to convert to spending money and to buy stuff at the grocery store, or to pay off your credit card, whatever the case may be. So, and the thing with owning land too is, it takes a little bit of time to sell it. I mean, if you own stocks, you can just sell them right away and get the money and then use it for stuff that you need. Or if you have if you have it in a bank or bonds and that kind of, like a bank, they call it liquid. You can use it right away. And if you got stacks of $100 bills in your house, you can just go to Cub Foods or Big Joe Rosso's discount foods and spend it right away, no problem. So there's always that to consider too. I mean, see, like there's a lot right next door to me here. I think it was probably bought for around $30,000. But I mean, nowadays, this was about 5 years ago. So now every year there's $800 a year in property taxes, and then the people that own it have to come out here every once in a while and mow the grass and stuff like that. But right now, today, if they were to sell it, it'd probably be about 60 to 70,000. So I mean, in 5 years, it's literally doubled what they put into it, and yeah, it takes time, and yeah, they got to spend whatever $4,000 on property tax and everything too, and then you got to mow the lawn and everything too. But I mean, it's just a very small investment. They got a nice storage garage, and they know that there's not going to be a lot of riffraff or crime out here too. So rather than just having because if you had $30,000 in a bank 5 years ago, you don't have to do anything with it. It can just sit there. But today it'd be worth $30,000. And with the way the Federal Reserve inflates money, it's the purchasing power of $30,000 5 years ago is probably the equivalent of 23,000 today or something like that. But the lot next door, you get winter 6 months out of the year, so they don't have to show up at all. But then the other 6 months, you might have to cut the grass 10 times a year. And well, last year they paid a few $1,000s to cut down a bunch of trees, so there's also that investment. I mean, you figure, so for 5 years they might have mowed the yard 50 times, spent $7,000 in taxes and other expenses. So let's say $35,000, and now it's worth $70,000. So essentially, they get $35,000 for mowing their yard 50 times. So I mean, that seems like a pretty good deal. If somebody is going to pay you $700 to go drive 20 miles to mow the yard and then leave, that seems like a pretty good investment. So now, obviously, yeah, maybe the market could have tanked again like it has. See, real estate pretty much aligns with inflation. So I mean, sometimes it even gets a little bit above or below based on the lot and where it is, how desirable it is. Because if you got some lot, like St. Cloud, for example, the job market is kind of tanking a little bit, so there's not increasing values. But like around Elk River, Rogers, Otsego, you can pretty much guarantee the price of everything you got is going to skyrocket. Because I mean, I bought this place for $35,000. It's on Zillow or Truly or whatever. And now it's probably, there's not a single house under $200,000 in this area. I mean, this place is obviously on the low end, so conservatively it'd probably be about $160,000. And yeah, I mean, I've had free rent for the last 4 years. Yeah, you had to put a little bit of work here and there, and sometimes if a pipe freezes, that's a big hassle too. But for the most part, very affordable living, cheaper to live here than a trailer park. And then the price appreciates over time too. So if you do have a lot of money sitting around, ladies and gentlemen, you always hear like investing in land and all that is all fun and games and everything too. I mean, if you're just going to buy some land and not use it for anything, then it's kind of, maybe it's not such a good idea. Like for example, in Princeton, there's a big lot there's some piece of land for sale and it's got the Rum River flowing through it, but essentially it's just a wooded area. You can't really do anything with it. You just own it and say you own it. So I mean, is there really any value to that? Maybe not. I mean, some days the water might recede and then the water table will go down and then they can put a cabin on there. So, I mean, I don't really. So I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. It's like if you're just going to buy land for the sake of saying you own land and so you can pay taxes on it, it may or may not be worth it. Just because if it's not desirable to anybody, or if it has no inherent benefits to it, then it's just kind of silly. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna pretty much any land, you can do something with it. But see, the thing is, trees are extremely vital as far as oxygen production and just healthy environments, but they're not healthy as far as monetary or materialistic. So if you do feel an obligation to the environment, and if you want to cut down global warming and you want to put your money where your mouth is, then yeah, you may as well just buy some land with a bunch of trees on, maybe plant some more trees, and then just pay the taxes and hope in 20 years, if you're ever going to sell it, it's going to be worth as much as what you paid for the initial upfront costs and all the taxes too. And then you'll know that you're doing good to society by adding trees and keeping communities clean again. And the thing is, if you have a piece of land like that, see, taxes, they don't directly mirror the value of the land, but for example, the neighbor here, the city of Otsego knows that this is a desirable plot of land. If somebody buys and builds some big fancy $500,000 house, they're going to pay a lot more taxes, so to the city that's more income. So gradually over time, they're going to increase the taxes and the land value is going to increase. But if you get a piece of land that's pretty much worth nothing, or you can't build anything on it or produce anything on it, Yeah, maybe if you're a big fisherman, you can use it for that. But if you're gonna get land that's not used for anything, the taxes are gonna be pretty cheap. I mean, if you get 5 wooded acres, you might only be paying $100 a year in property taxes, and then you could say, well, I'm growing more trees, producing more oxygen and all that other junk, so no, hell, you probably wouldn't even have to do a darn thing. Just let nature run its course, and you might live your whole life and never even go to the land. You just are paying your fair share to cut down or to keep communities clean again, whatever the case may be. And yeah, I mean, if see, not everything I suppose has to be a materialistic or monetary gain. Being healthy is first and foremost the best thing. But yeah, I mean, at some point, if you don't have any money and you got to live in a van on some corner in San Francisco, it doesn't really matter how healthy you are. If you're homeless, it's not a good situation to be in. And eventually, yeah, you probably will lose some of your health based on those ulterior circumstances. So I mean, the other investments you can make, I mean, pretty much anything you make that's produced is bound to go down in value, like cars. When you buy a house, it's on a piece of land, so yeah, it's you're buying the land basically. But I mean, cars, cameras, weightlifting equipment. I mean, yeah, it's not going to go up in value, but it's not really going to go down either. I mean, if you buy a squat rack for $300 and as long as you're not lifting 1,000 pounds and bending up and snapping things apart, then yeah, it's probably going to be worth about $300 when you want to resell it. So if you plan to use things, yeah, it's a good investment. But if you spend a bunch of money on a car where it's going to nosedive in value, not a very good investment. Yeah, I mean, it seems like there should be a lot of things out there to spend money on, but the quality things that you can spend money on also require an investment of time. So if you have no time and lots of money, then what do you spend money on? You know what I mean? Then you almost have to use the money to exploit the efforts of other people or whatever. Maybe you can just donate it to a worthy cause. Not just wildly throw it away to the Susan G. Komen so they can spend 90% on administrative and management costs and 1% on actual cancer research. It's just trying to find good things to allocate your money towards, or whatever the case may be. And then too, maybe sometimes it's a good idea to sit on it too. You might decide one day that you're gonna start a tree cutting business, so then you could buy a bunch of chainsaws and buy a fancy truck, and you got the money on hand to do so. So there's also that to consider. But then of course that's assuming you have a lot of time as well. And yeah, I mean, it's just good to not have to worry about finances and all that other goofy stuff. Because yeah, I mean, I think I was born to wealthy parents and all that stuff too, so I don't think I've ever worried about money problems. I mean, there might have been one time where I didn't have a lot of money or had less money than I thought I should because I blew it all on some car that I thought would be fun to have, and turned out spending a lot of money on a car is not a very good thing. Oh yeah, it'd be nice to have an electric convertible, and the only one available is the Tesla Roadster, so maybe if a big briefcase of money shows up on my deck, or maybe the Jehovah's Witnesses will drop off a big briefcase of money, then yeah, maybe I'll just go ahead and buy the Tesla Roadster. But it'd be nice to think if there were some long-range electric convertibles out there, but there just aren't. That's probably the only one. Then yeah, the investment would be horrible. The lithium-ion batteries might crap out, and then I might have to spend $15,000 right off the bat. So there's also that to consider. I mean, just see. I mean, if you say, for example, you want to you got a bunch of money and you tend to like gardening, so you can just buy some little plot of land out somewhere and then just go out there, a couple times over the summer, till it up, plant plants, lay down the weed barriers, and then grow some plants out there, and then hopefully the value will increase and you'll get plants out of the deal. So yeah, it's just a good idea to invest in yourself, all that good stuff too. And yeah, giving money to friends and family isn't usually a good idea. it's just a recipe for disaster. That doesn't mean you need to be a dick about stuff. It's just, I've never asked anybody, you know, yeah, I've lived with my parents and they've bought me stuff here and there, but I mean, I don't think I've ever asked friends for money. It's just something you don't really do. I mean, yeah, I've asked them for a lot of time as far as, you know, talking nonsense on Facebook and everything too, so I mean, yeah, is time just as valuable as money? Yeah, you could argue that. But we've come to the conclusion of the show, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have good times, balls deep in the near future. I hope you be here to join us, and we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks a lot for watching, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Tex Messages with the parasite of the show, Rick Tex, and yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.